Tell me.
This is Queen Victoria in Victoria. And while I was doing that sketch, the concierge at the legislative building came down and said, well, what are you, it was damp, it was sort of raining, and I was trying to do it quickly. And he said, what are you doing? And he said, oh, there's a story behind that. She wasn't delivered to Victoria for 3 years because the captain of the boat enjoyed her ballast, in the bottom of the boat. She became a very good ballast when she was going around the Horn. And other stories like that, like this is in Toronto. She was relocated from India, and this is in Ottawa, I think. And this is part of one that was in Australia. In Australia, where is she? I think this could be Australia, but she's got the orb and the hammer, as it were. That's like she was relocated from Dublin because when Ireland went independent, they didn't want her anymore there, like India. So it was good fun to see them. There's so many of them. And it makes a very interesting way to sketch. You don't need a model. She makes a very good model. She's not moving. So the daughter, she can tell you about these ones here.
So if that's the public sphere, which is to do with monumentality and sculpture, which we were all preoccupied with last year to a certain extent with the decolonization of spaces, some of these just quiet and gestural, brief, quick sketches are to do with some domestic spaces or still lives, and that's what this wall represents. So the gallery at Errant Art has almost an axis. So along this wall here, I talked about the 3 or 4 major problems of the public sphere, and my doctorate was in an area to do with where I was born, Northern Ireland, and the issues with the public sphere. There on the back wall is some didactic material to do with my piece that's gone to the Peace Museum in Bradford, UK, which is 4,000 people have died of sectarian acts in Northern Ireland. Of course, in other cities today, we're preoccupied with the homeless crisis, the burial remains of the Indigenous residential schools, COVID being the backdrop to all of this in the last few years, and the fentanyl crisis, which is represented by a purple ribbon. These are just propped against the wall in a modernist style, working with textiles in a very, maybe perhaps a kind of a distant way. And if you think of modernism, and maybe we could just cut and go to this image here. I've painted in a modernist style in abstract expressionism, stained acrylic canvas, learning from a man named Sam Gilliam when I was at school in Pittsburgh when I was much younger. And large abstract work compared to small decorative work, which is represented in these photographs by Lycia Spindler, who has work in the Detroit Institute of Arts. And these are, in a way, represent equally important attributes of decorative art, being acrylic painting in this case, tended to be by Mexican and Vietnamese immigrants to Detroit, where I was living for 3 years and learning to make site-specific sculpture in a school outside of Detroit called Cranbrook Academy of Art. So this was a show representative of a show we did together a number of years ago in Midtown Detroit under the theme of Driven, and how women in particular feel how to go ahead with their lives, and also how to make home and body decorative. I can show you another room where I showed aspects of my earthwork or land art in the 1990s. So if we go down this corridor, there's a side room here where I placed a massage table, and trying to show that that the body and performance around the body, such as my work with open actions in Victoria, is an equally interesting genre as large-scale earthwork, monumentation, architecture. These works were done, and I haven't shown them before, from the Maple Ridge silvicultural forest outside of Vancouver. And the crisis that was going on at that time on Vancouver Island was the Clackwatt crisis. Now it's Fairy Creek. So the compressed hog fuel is to do with the idea of regeneration. And I worked with several compressed materials. Over here as documentation, you see work in Irish peat moss, again representing my home country. This could be thrown on the fire and transformed into heat. Canadian sphagnum peat moss, which this piece was built out of large-scale work, 28 by 22 feet. And other works I've done in the public sphere in Northern Ireland, and a college campus, for example, in a wheat growing area in the middle of Washington State. So I'm trying to bring in serious elements of so-called high art and playful elements of low art, so-called folk art in the past. This work being by a colleague I showed with in 1992, Kempton Dexter, who's also a writer. Any other questions? Errant art has been a really neat space because it has the, as I said, the two, the corridor and then another kind of larger space, and then this empty room, this intimate space we're in now, which you can talk about different things. I've had people do outlines of their body on the massage table and talk about their own problems or woundings to do with the body, which are particular to people who might have made public protests, for example, in situations like Fairy Creek.